Hey, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Peter Boghossian. I'm here with my buddy, Doug. Christina Buttons will not be joining us because Johan Hari, unfortunately, is sick. Hopefully it's not from Ozempic. I'm reading his book. It's truly, I'm almost finished with it. It's truly great. He's a gifted writer. So I'm here with Doug. Pinecreek Doug. How are you, Pinecreek Doug?
I'd say about an 8 out of 10. If we get some callers, I could go up to 9 or 10.
I was gonna say, what would make you go up to 9? Callers would make you. Well, that'd be no problem.
I really hope callers call in who disagree with us. It's always way more interesting if people disagree than agree. But Christina, I post a little clip of our interaction, and you know what the pushback was in the comment section with her? She used to work for the Daily Wire. And so therefore I can ignore everything, or maybe not ignore, but I can just, write her off. I mean, I'm not a philosopher type, but I've been told that this is some type of fallacy. She used to work at Daily Wire. It was a genetic fallacy or something like that.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of something I asked Shermer and the thing. Yeah. So that's, I think, as I've said for years, that's just an excuse for people not to do intellectual work. I was wondering, maybe you're not the right person to ask this question, but I was thinking that we need to create the name of a fallacy for when somebody supports someone's right to do X and someone thinks that because you support their right to do X, you do X too.
Oh, yeah. It's guilt by association, right? Fallacy, you call it.
No, that's...
Well, yeah, because it doesn't necessarily mean
this guilt. Is much more specific. So like I support gay marriage, which I do. And therefore, because I support gay marriage, I must be gay.
Well, are you?
No, but I supported some dude who wants to eat people's excrement. I mean, I can give a shit less, pun intended. I could give a shit less what this guy wants to do with himself. But all these people are, freaking out at me because I said that. I mean, if there's ever a victimless crime, it's like a guy wants to eat some.
Yeah, I saw some of that on Twitter.
Whose business is it? It's nobody's business. Mind your own fucking business.
What exactly did you say? Because I remember on Twitter seeing a whole long thread of people being mad at you or calling you a hypocrite or something because you said
they're telling me that I'm a shit eater. Like, what? Like, so we need a fallacy for that. Like, you can't, like, the people who can't even think, like, that's so crazy to me. And Helen Pluckrose is like frantically DMing me that, this is really good. They don't understand the principles of liberalism, and I just kept thinking, like, we need a specific fallacy for this. Like, we need. And that's the thing. I think the whole thing is so broken, the whole educational system. And I've just been thinking about how sometimes some things are just so obvious, and yet they seem beyond the grasp.
Well, how do you fix that? How do you fix the education system?
Oh my God, we could do. I cannot possibly explain that to you within 20 minutes.
Homeschooling.
I'll do a whole, I'll tell you what, rather than just throw out tidbits here and there, I'll do a whole podcast with you. I think, where was it, Reed, I think it was with Brian Kalin. I gave I went on a 10-minute soliloquy or rant, depending. The whole thing is just broken and fatuous. And
did you know I homeschooled my kids?
How'd that work out?
Excellent. Like from K through grade 5, my wife basically did K to 1 and then, or maybe 2, and then I did the rest. Well, maybe it's more 50-50 throughout the whole time. But my kids were immune by the time they went to public education to a lot of the crap that, like the peer pressure, the proclivity to, feel bad about your own body or whatever because of TikTok girls. My daughter, she looks at social media and she throws up in her mouth and she kind of spits on it. Like my son, he looks at the other people and just says, well, they're nuts. They're crazy. Like, what's going on here? So maybe the answer is homeschooling through K through early elementary, junior high school. And then the resources out there for homeschooling are just amazing.
Yeah, I in one sense I want to apprecate in that. I'm trying to bring down my vocabulary. I want kind of bathe in the sunshine of that idea. But another, I think that the system itself is we need to address this at a system level. And homeschool, I would have thought 20 years ago, I could never have homeschooled, but I think I'm changing my mind slowly on that, just because of how utterly corrupt the system. That's the other thing. It's this, so many layers of corruption in the society. It's so many things that, it's becoming a kind of, we don't use the term third world anymore, global south. It's becoming a third world kleptocracy in a sense. Okay, so what should we be talking about today, man?
I've heard some interesting things about DMT.
Oh, you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
So what? So just so everybody knows, that's a Schedule 1 drug. It's equivalent to heroin.
Because I get people on my show, not so much calling in and talking about it, but there's been a couple. But there's people who say, Doug, why don't you do these drugs and you can really get to know the inner workings of your brain and expand your world? And I say, I just have no need for that. I mean, I like to be in control of my faculties.
How do you know? And I realize that you're going to give me a counterexample, most likely with something that's not even remotely relevant. But how do you know you have no need for it? And don't tell me.
Asking, how do I know I have a mind?
I know you're going to say, well, how do you know I don't have a need for like sleeping with a hippopotamus? But I mean, how do you know that you don't have a need for?
Because let's say there was a plate of DMT right in front of me right now. There's nothing in my mind and my hand to reach for it and take it.
Do you think that you generally have a conservative disposition toward life?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so do you think that the conservative disposition that you have toward life manifests in the conservative disposition you have toward, for example, psychedelics?
I would say that it's not the conservativeness in me that would not take psychedelics. It's the I like to be in control. That type of part of my personality type that would dictate that. So when you're on at least mind-altering drugs, you lose control, right?
You mean you lose a kind of control? Yeah. I mean, you usually have. Excuse me. Timothy Leary has a whole protocol. Other people have protocols, but basically it deals with set and setting. You want to control the set and setting. And I don't, I'm not like a big drug guy at all.
Yeah, like if you need people to watch over you while you're taking these psychedelics to make sure you're safe and everything, then it's a burden to them.
They let's say they that strikes me as just an excuse for you to not to rationalize.
It's not an excuse. It's just like here's coffee. Coffee makes me happy.
Yeah, I'm drinking coffee too.
Why do I need anything other than coffee and nicotine? I got nicotine gum right here.
Oh, dude, you don't really do that, do you? That's probably terrible for you. Why do you do that?
It's not terrible. There's no studies that show that nicotine gum is bad for you.
Really? Is that really the case?
Smoking's bad for you. Now, okay, one caveat. If you already suffer from, let's say, heart disease and like if your blood pressure goes too high, but nicotine is a stimulant just like caffeine. So if you're going to poo-poo nicotine, you got to poo-poo caffeine.
Well, wait a second. Why are those two in parallel? Like,
because they're both stimulants.
So you mean to tell me that is it the delivery mechanism, how one ingests the nicotine?
No, it's not. They don't even put food coloring in them.
You mean to tell me that nicotine has no deleterious effects on the body?
If you have, if you already suffer from high blood pressure, then
okay, assuming you don't.
That holds true for coffee too, though.
Reed, do we have someone in the chat named Felix?
But anyhow, I just.
So let's fix the DMT thing. And Reed,
I get suspicious of people who want me to take these drugs. Like, why would you want me to take DMT or be open to it?
Who,
like,
me?
What's the benefits? Yeah. You can act on behalf of the DMT espousers.
I don't even know how I could even begin to explain that to you. So I guess we have a kind of mutual suspicion. You're suspicious of me for advocating it for you. And of course, I would never advocate anything that's illegal. I'm talking hypothetically.
Right.
And you're...
you did well. You kept a straight face for like 2 seconds.
And you're suspicious of me for my hypothetical advocating this to you. So I think we have a kind of mutual in tandem.
Yeah. Like, why would anyone want me to take DMT? What do they care about my life?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends. Would you want somebody that you... I mean, we've never met in real life, but I would want you to not do something harmful to yourself, right?
Right.
And I would assume you would want me to not do something harmful to myself, right?
Right.
And would you, like, if you had a wand and you could wave it and I would eat kind of better food at no cost to myself, like I could just make better dietary choices, you would wave the wand, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so we would both then want as a baseline.
Although bad food sometimes tastes really good, like, so maybe once in a while.
Okay, so we would both want to help reduce harm from some people, and then to the other, and help increase, and that leads. We would want to basically lead the other to flourishing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so by extension, then we would want to eliminate the bad and promote the good, which we talked about. So then somebody who would advocate DMT, which I'm not doing, would then...
You're a horrible liar.
I love YouTube. I love YouTube. I love YouTube.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I see the roadmap.
Okay,
but
well, there you go. I don't have to say anymore.
But the thing is, there's many types of flourishing. There's many ways to get comfort. There's many ways to get joy. Coffee is one of them.
If there's no downside, like if there's literally no downside, if it's not addictive, if it doesn't permanently alter your brain chemistry, if it's 5 minutes in and out, what would be the reason not to? I think that's a kind of really recalcitrant, closed-mindedness.
How much does DMT cost? From what you've heard,
free. Let's say it's free.
Let's say it's free. Okay, but if you like this cup of coffee, if you told me if I take the next sip, I'm going to be out of it for 5 minutes, I'm not going to take the sip.
Okay, that doesn't really answer the question, though.
Well, it's because I want to be in control for that 5 minutes.
So you must think then not doing it outweighs the benefits of doing it, even though you don't know what the benefits of doing it are. So that tells me it's a disposition that you have as opposed to any evidence-based thing.
Yeah, my disposition is I don't need it.
Right. All right. Well, we have a super chat, but before we do, our policy on my personal policy, I don't know if this is your policy, but my policy is I do not take calls or interact in any way and anything if people who have harassed me in the past. Like, that's it. That's my red line. I love to talk to people who disagree with me. I love it. In fact, when I do talks, I always say they come to the front, and if you disagree with me,
but Peter, would you allow someone to come on and harass me instead of you?
You mean if they've harassed you in the past?
Yeah, and I'm okay with them harassing me live.
I don't know. I have to think about it. I mean, my rule is really extending only. I can't extend my rule. My obligations.
I like being harassed
by people who have harassed you in the past, like people who have gone after your family. People.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, of course there's a line with everything, but if they're harassing me personally, just based on things I've said on my live stream, I think that's fair game. But yeah, if they...
No, but things you've said, that's not harassing you. There's a distinction between you and the ideas, like people harboring an animus against you.
Yeah, I would agree with you that if if someone's come after your family, but then like
I mean, that's just an example.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you're a convivial fellow, so I don't perceive that as happening. Okay, Reed, what's our super chat? Trade Bear, I love Trade Bear, $9.99. I did some research where education went wrong. How to educate a citizen by Hirsch is great. Edie Hirsch is an excellent place to find our way back. Yeah, I love Hirsch.
Is the basic thesis of Hirsch teach critical thinking early?
No, he has like, basically he upholds these ideas, and there's a canon. And then and I'll be talking to Brian Kaplan on Thursday for the case against education. So don't ask me what that means yet. We'll ask him. I like to let people speak for themselves. There's a canon. There are just things that people need to know, like what every educated American should know. And then that postmodernity rips down that canon because they say that it's infused with power differentials, and the applied postmodernism, it's a term of Alan Pluckrose and James Lindsay, manifests that in terms of nodes of power distribution around identity markers. So I think that's right. And I think thinking about things, I was just watching this video yesterday. I'm going to be working with young men. I try to get in prisons in the third world. I couldn't get any. It's too complicated. You need too much money.
Just commit a crime and then you'll get in.
No, I know. We'll get in to actually teach as opposed to just get in. But and I was watching them teach young. It was a young black man teaching kids to how to like shake hands, look people in the eye, etc. And I just found that to be that's kind of like what the Hirsch thing would be. It's like there are certain rituals and participation, certain canons of knowledge, pieces of information that you need to be able to successfully navigate the society.
Sounds like conservatism in a way.
Yeah, it's a kind of conservatism in a sense, but it's a conservatism with an instrumental end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk about my wife for a second?
In what context?
Because mere moments before we went live, I asked my wife, who has read your book, A Manual for Creating Atheists.
Oh, yes.
And full disclosure, I have not read your book. At least just maybe a few parts of it.
Here it is.
One. So she bought your book on Kindle or something.
Oh, tell her thank you.
And she read it, and I said, "Hey, I'm going on with Peter Boghossian. Do you have any questions for him?" And she was, as a good wife, she was doing the dishes, and she looked up.
That's a good wife. Oh my God! Someone's gonna clip that out and be like, "Look at these Nazis." my wife does the dishes. It's a good wife. She does the dishes. And Nazi. Yeah.
I'm gonna paraphrase what she said, but it was something along the lines of your conversation you had with David Silverman a while back.
Yeah.
And she asked, do you have regrets about that book in hindsight? Because let's say Street Epistemology, your book, that kind of movement in quotes, created atheists, actually was successful. And now we
wildly successful, yeah.
And we see a loss of identity in people, and they kind of go crazy after that, like with the woke stuff. Do you have regrets about making that book?
I have zero regrets. I wanted another title, but my publisher didn't want that. I wanted a Street Epistemology. He told me that the word epistemology in the title would dramatically reduce anyone reading it in sales, etc. No, I think I was Pollyanna at the time to assume that if we, I don't want to say got rid of or extirpated, or I don't know, if we, well, if the book was successful, I did think that I didn't foresee the current path to madness in which we currently find ourselves. Like I didn't see the undermining of, I don't know, for example, the meritocracy.
But you see it now, right?
Do I see that when the traditional structures that have been with us for 1,000 years or 2,000 years eroded, people would start believing
Like if we had a time machine and you know what you know now,
Yeah.
and I say, okay, here's my time machine. We can go back and make sure that
Yeah.
that book was never published.
I would definitely have published the book.
You would still publish it.
Yeah, I would have made it a little less about religion and God, and I would have made it more general epistemology, like more. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, it's a version of, you're asking a version of the substitution hypothesis, which I spoke about repeatedly. I think that I did not foresee how utterly demented the society would become, the damage to institutions. I did not see much of it. I saw some of it, but I honestly, looking back, I was Pollyanna about what would happen.
Because what's interesting, what we're seeing now is guys like James Lindsay, they get invited to highly conservative right-wing events.
I do all the time. I just don't go.
Yeah. Oh, you don't go?
No.
Well, you went to that one where
sometimes I go.
That guy said you called him out because he was acting like he was a right-winger acting woke by disrupting, yelling.
Oh yeah, he was a religious guy. He was he was upset that I didn't accept Jesus, or I thought the whole thing was silly.
Yeah. No, I thought the way you handled that was great. And because the people around you, his fellow Christians, kind of poo-pooed him for doing what he did as well, right?
I was amazed at the response that got afterward. I mean, people were like everybody was so grateful to me. Even that's the thing, Christians, they're so nice to me. It's really remarkable. They came up and they thanked me. They said, "I'm so sorry. He doesn't represent us." I mean, Reed was there. I mean, it was like the whole. I mean, it's astonishing how many people did that.
In general,
yeah.
Do you think Christians treat you better? Like you're kind of a public figure now. Or do atheists treat you better?
Oh, that's the easiest question in the world. There's absolutely no question whatsoever. Reed, I'm going to get rid of this private chat. It's too distracting. I don't know why I'm even looking at it. There's absolutely no question whatsoever that Christians treat me better, even though I've been very blunt about what I think about their beliefs. It's just no. Shermer told me years ago that he's, he really goes into the belly of the beast and talks about, he's basically gone after every superstition one can imagine. And he said nobody is remotely, and he really goes after what these people believe, like their fundamental core beliefs about reality. And nobody has treated him as poorly as the atheists.
So if Christians are treating you better than atheists,
yeah,
what do I need to do to lead you to Christ today?
Show me evidence. Yeah, show me evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a call.
I have no axe to grind. I just don't think there's enough evidence for it. Hey Eddie, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing today? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear him, Doug? Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I was just wondering, like, how do we actually get rid of the influence of kind of critical theory, right? We see it in so many of the different institutions. We see some pushback in some of the universities, people being more committed to, free speech principles. At least they're nominally kind of registering. I think just Harvard just earlier today. Yeah, but I'm a psychologist and I see it influencing a lot of our thinking, a lot of our education systems, a lot of our different institutions is being codified in a lot of development, training programs, things like this. But how do we actually kind of push it back to a point where it's as least amount of influence like might have had in, say, the early 90s or something like that?
It's a great question.
I have thoughts on this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And so, Eddie, I want to let you know from the get-go that I'm probably on your side on this issue, but let me kind of push back. Do you see any positive things about critical theory?
Myself, not of critical theory. I think there's been probably things I see as benefits coming from the conversation, being more, aware of power differentials, things like that. But I think the approach of critical theory, the Marxism as well as the postmodern elements of it, probably aren't helpful in the long run. But I do think kind of bringing the conversation up has been a positive benefit in certain ways, but I wouldn't attribute that necessarily to critical theory. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Can I pause you? can I pause you there? Can I comment on what your question, Doug, before we get to Eddie? That's a really interesting question. One of the main purposes I've always thought should be, what should we do with really bad epistemology? What should we do with really bad ideas? And among the best thing to do is subject them to scrutiny, to examine them, to delve deeply into them. Helen Pluckrose is extraordinarily good at this. Like, that's her superpower, really. And then use those to fuel our epistemology, to make our epistemological, to sharpen our epistemological instruments. But the problem with your question, Doug, your question is a great one, but the problem is that embedded in that question itself is the ability to use those tools to analyze critical theory. And we have people now who do not want those conversations, who do not want, like the example I said in my live stream, they wanted to teach indigenous or Native American philosophy, but they didn't want that questions to be allowed, particularly if they're by settlers or colonists. So there's something embedded in the ideology which prevents it from really being scrutinized and examined. And that principle itself is reflexive. So if you say, is there anything positive about critical theory? I think we need to embed that idea that of an allergy to kind of criticism within that. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to get that out because I thought it was an interesting question.
But the simple answer to your question, Eddie, would be to pit the intersectionalities against each other. So you use their moral intuitions, their feel sorry forism for a certain group of people, and you ask questions like, well, who do you think's more impressed, the woman or the man with the darker skin? and you see this with feminism and trans. You see this with Muslims and women, and so they don't know what to do. Like, who I've done a live stream where I put a list of oppressed people in quotes and then ask, who do you think is most oppressed? And it's pretty funny to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the concern I have with that is only that it seems to slough off just a few people that are potentially open to think about these things critically. You have the activists or the actual ideologues who actually buy into the theory. And I think James Lindsay did a great job at Oxford, where he kind of talked about this, can the left go too far, right? And the idea that it never can, because it just kind of recycles, and whoever becomes the new dominant position, it kind of feeds back into. So I think the concern I have with that is, like, yeah, you lose a few of those, but the people that seem to kind of latch onto those are the people who are thinking about these things critically in the first place. And it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't quite make sense. But it seems like it's kind of throwing out a bigger net, is bringing more into the fold. And I'm not sure how we can work our way back out of that fold, if that makes sense. I definitely agree with you, because people are thinking rationally and logically and trying to examine evidence. They're going to see these things. They're going to see there's a miss. And they might be planting the seed, and hopefully that's fruitful. And that's what I'm hoping for our future, so to speak.
Like, how
but I'm
prevalent
just
do you
worried that
even
might
think?
be. Mhm.
Hey, excuse me for a sec. Hey, Reed, could you look at my texts on Signal? Thanks. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Eddie, how prevalent do you even think it is at this point? Like, I saw recent polling data, 70% of the American public think that trans women men should not be in women's sports. Like, it's almost becoming like a non-issue, or do you think it's still a big issue?
Well, I think it's still an issue in terms of the amount that's embedded in our institutions. I'm not sure how that gets changed. I think that's part of my question, because like in the federal government, DEI, IDEA, JEDI, there's all these different acronyms, right? It's the flourishing. We know how that kind of works, with this ideology. So there might be some kind of reflexive kind of backtrack where it makes sense for, like, yeah, obviously we shouldn't let, like, I'm a 6 foot guy, 6 foot, 240 pounds. I probably shouldn't be in a boxing ring with a girl who's like 5'2" and weighs 100 pounds. Yeah. Right. So a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, that's probably wrong. We should probably stop that. That's not good.
Yeah, I think they're being humiliated at this point and mocked to such a degree that I think the tide is turning, has turned. Like, you just watch politicians go at each other from right to left, And people who support DEI, they can be asked really tough questions and they really squirm.
Yeah, I think we are in a good place for that. That people can ask questions now. For a long time, people weren't even allowed to ask questions, and I think hopefully we're through that. So maybe that's where we're at now. Maybe we're in a good place. I was just that's just what I was wondering about. But I appreciate you guys taking my question.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in, man. Cheers.
Yeah, I asked the question the other day on one of my live streams. If 100% of our university professors were Asian, what would be wrong with that?
I just want to say, Reed, I'm fucking sick of these people. Everybody just ban them from the chat. You don't like it? Go fuck yourself. Make your own comment. All of these people, just ban everybody from the chat. In fact, Reed, why don't you give me permission and I'm just going to ban all these creepers, stalking creepers from the chat.
Hey, Robert.
Reed, hold on one second. Reed, either do it now or give me permission. I'm just not going to deal with these people anymore. Just ban everybody. Literally just go through the list and block everybody.
Are you talking about the digital gnosis thing?
Just everybody. I'm just sick. I'm just sick of this bullshit. If you don't, Snowflake, well, then make your own channel. Go fuck off. Hey, Robert, how's it going, man?
Better than you apparently right at this second anyway.
No, I'm just these people are obsessed with me. I mean, they're just creepy stalkers, and just kick them out or give me the permission. I'll kick them out. I don't want to deal with it. Fuck you.
Right.
Anyway, what's going on, man?
I just found it really interesting about when you guys were talking about the psychedelics thing, and I've seen that a lot lately. I don't know why. I guess I've just kind of been paying more attention to it on YouTube, but I see a lot of people that are apparently using things like ketamine or microdosing. And I've never, I'm not a drug user per se. I don't really have any knowledge about that stuff, but one of the recurring themes that I hear people talk about a lot is how they are at least attempting to use these substances in order to, I'm going to use a kind of a different term to sort of achieve like a type of enlightenment or, expand their mind, like they used to say about, LSD back in the 70s. And it just seems to me that I don't understand how a person could achieve something like that. I'm not trying to talk it down because I don't have any experience with it, but what occurs to me is that if I were to want to sit down and meditate and do that in a way to achieve like an inner peace or an emotional calmness, I don't think it would be the same as if I did that while I'm shit-faced drunk, right? Or if I'm high on marijuana or anything. I'm not trying to talk badly about drug use, but I don't see where that line is. Like, how do people justify that? What are your thoughts on that? Hopefully, I'm making sense with that. I don't know.
Yeah, Doug, you want to go or?
Well, it sounds like Robert's on my side on this one, so it's on you, Peter.
Okay, cool. So, give me is the question: are psychedelics useful for enlightenment? I mean, I personally don't believe that there's any such a thing as enlightenment. I also don't believe that there's a specific ontological realm that one can infer from the phenomenological experience. In other words, you have a remarkably robust, coherent world. I don't think that world exists outside of your own head. I don't think that and I'm just reading a wonderful book now. I'm actually going to have the guy on my show. I can't find it at the moment. Let's see. Maybe I can find it here. No, I can't find it at the moment. Alien Switch Technologies, I think it's called. Don't let the name of the book put you off. So I don't believe in the concept of that it kind of enlightens. Some people have said that it's a medicine. I'm not sure that although I've listened to and read testimonies of people again, I'm not really, I've just been very recently interested in this since I tried DMT once or twice. I tried it twice, and I've just been very interested in that experience and what evolutionarily led I'm interested in the conversation, what the conversation is, and I'm interested in why I just don't understand enough about the brain or how the brain works to understand why those experiences would be so coherent and so utterly extraordinary. And I'm not even talking about 5-MeO DMT. I'm just talking about just general DMT. I haven't done that. And keep in mind, these are Schedule 1 illegal drugs, and I'm not advocating for, nor is certainly not Doug advocating for these.
Like if I were told that if I took a certain psychedelic drug, that the efficiency at my workplace, that I would become better, quantitatively better, yeah, then I'd consider it. But I don't think is there any evidence of that?
But better at what? What do you mean?
Well, for example, let's say a 21-year-old university student was told that if you take DMT, and let's say they're thinking of going to grad school, your GRE score will go up 20%. Like if we had hard data like that, then I think, be a proponent for these types of drugs.
Yeah, if you look at it in terms of discrete metrics, but if you look at it, if the reason you're doing it is something else, I don't know, just to have that experience or to, and again, like anything else, you'd need to weigh a cost benefit analysis. And again, I am not an expert, but I am having experts on the show to talk about this. So if I don't know, I'm going to find someone who knows. And I'm trying to find people from all over the spectrum, if you will.
See, Peter, my opinion is that
yeah,
these psychedelic drugs are a replacement for God.
What do you mean?
That people, when I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've experienced this firsthand where I'm in a Pentecostal church and they think that the Holy Spirit has come down upon them, and they start dancing, they start laughing, they start
you mean
on the floor and shaking, and
you think that yeah, I mean, it's interesting the reasons that non-adaptive perceptions, like things that you didn't evolve to perceive, but then you perceive anyway, but that confers an ontological status on those experiences. Again, I'm barely beginning trying to figure this out. So I don't know. I am fascinated. I can see why you'd think, or why one would think that they're a substitution for God, or an ersatz perception of God. These little entities, machine elves that Terrence McKenna keeps talking about.
Or there's really sad. Let's say you had a really depressing day. You go home, you take a psychedelic drug, you feel better afterwards, right? I'm assuming that's the case.
No, that's not a psychedelic. I mean, that's, again, different people have different So I've actually reading another guy's book who's here. Well, I'm not in Portland, but who's in Portland, north of me, and he was. His name is Tom. He's written this absolutely mind-blowing book that I'll get him on the show. I don't want to give too much about it away because the book isn't published yet. But again, I'm just learning in this journey, and so I'm totally new to this. But I think that this is something that's worth pursuing in terms of why people have these experiences, the consistency. I heard Joe Rogan talk about it for years, and I also have a friend of mine who swears that he had sex with this like creature. And he described her in like the woman with the blue tail in astonishing accuracy. And if you Google that, like the entities people talk to, and if you Google machine elves, quote unquote, these consistently reoccur. Now that's fascinating to me. Why would that? And people infer from that there's an ontological status, right? People infer from that these are actually real creatures inhabiting a real thing. I don't know. I think that's an invalid inference to make from that the data of common shared experiences. But I will say it's pretty extraordinary that everybody has the same specific. There must be something in the architecture of the brain, or again, I don't know. I'm learning about it right now. The switch technologies is very interesting. I have to let Travis's dog in. I'll be right back. Pinecreek, you take that.
Yeah, so it's obvious Peter's wrong, right, Robert?
Well, one of the big things that I seen about this was I watched the Sean Ryan show, and this has been a few months ago. He had a former Navy SEAL on the show. I'm a longtime Navy veteran. Was definitely not a SEAL, but I was in the Seabees, and this gentleman is this Navy SEAL is kind of famous, and he was known.
Can you speak a little louder or closer to the mic?
Yeah, sorry. So he was a Navy SEAL who became, regardless of whether he was Navy SEAL, he determined that he was a transgender woman. So he, was a biological male, and became a woman, transgender woman. And he started microdosing with mushrooms, and I believe he said ketamine, but I'm not completely sure about that one. And now he has determined, in his opinion, that by use of these drugs in a controlled environment, he is not transgender, and that he is.
What?
I'm sorry, I say the wrong word, but he claims now that he is actually autogynephilic.
Yep.
I think. Right term,
I've heard multiple testimonies. I've heard multiple testimonies of people who have taken psychedelics, and it's kind of, I don't want to say woken them up from the spell of transgenderism, but I don't know any of these people personally, but I've heard that that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Okay, now this you guys are doing something to me, because I think gender dysphoria is bad, and most transgender people have gender dysphoria. So are you saying to me that psychedelic drugs can be a cure for gender dysphoria?
No, I'm telling you that I have heard from people on multiple sources that they've ingested psychedelics, and they have and the word psychedelics is an umbrella term. You need to just talk about what the psychedelic is. And then they started questioning their own gender dysphoria, or they started you got to be very careful about the words that we use here. We need to be precise in our language, that they no longer felt that they suffered from gender dysphoria as a result. That's why if you look at the literature, and when you listen to a lot of these podcasts, people continually use the word medicine. I don't personally think it's a medicine, but I'm certainly amenable to I'd be slightly disagree on the spectrum.
But Peter, what if I took DMT and then thought I'm actually a woman? Like, is there any cases like that?
I don't know. Again, I'm just looking into this now. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't really know. I would be astonished if that were the case, because I haven't heard anything about that. But I've only heard it going the other way.
But even if that is the case, even if you do, I guess that's kind of where my question comes from, is how valid is it when this is an experience that is, or a set of feelings, or a self-identifying trait that is only brought on, or at least exacerbated, by the use of these drugs. Like, in other words, if he was, so one of the comments that he made again was kind of like, well, it's really helped me to figure out who I am. And my immediate thought on that was, it's not helping you figure out who you are. It's helping you figure out who you are in a state that is altered by whatever it is these these psychedelic drugs are doing to you. And again, I don't mean like in a disparaging way. It's just that if I wanted to figure out, in my mind, if I wanted to really figure out something about myself, I would rather do it in as much of a natural state as possible. For lack of a better way to say it.
But Robert, I would change my mind on this issue if there was hard data, that scientific data that said certain mental conditions would be solved through taking these types of drugs. But as far as we know, that's not out there yet.
See,
right?
that's interesting. So I agree. The problem is, okay, so here's my problem with that. I think that the journals and the journals are so captured that they would likely be pro psychedelics, and I would want them to be independent, seeking to disconfirm. So that's an example of when I I mean, we need things we can rely upon. We need, like, that's the whole purpose of the peer review journal. But I think that the peer review process, the people reviewing and writing would be pro psychedelic. So I'm not sure I would trust that data. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You need a guy like me to conduct the study.
Yeah. Well, I would need people all over, people who have no dog in the fight, people who are pro, people who are con. Like, I would need people to.
Because I'm not against these drugs. I don't think I need them and have no desire to use them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel that
So
way.
I'd be the
about,
perfect guy to conduct
I
the
feel that
study.
way about, a lot of things,
Yeah.
I don't feel I need I don't think I feel I need what are those things that go on the water? That you pull jet skis on. What are those things called?
Motorboats?
I don't, well, yeah, that too. I don't need a motorboat. I don't need to sleep with a goat. I mean, like, I don't need a lot of stuff. All right, cool. Thanks. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it, man. Thanks. And again, I'm going to be doing a lot of, we're going to have a lot of people on the show to talk about this, people who move in this space and know it. And I think that the emergence of these drugs, and DMT is found naturally in the body. I think that the emergence of these, I don't know what you want to call them, technologies, or sometimes people call them medicines or what have you. I think that's a really interesting conversation. All right. Hey, so we got some
Got a homeschooling person, or
let's do some of these. And I don't know, all these people, like, I don't know why all these people are obsessed with me. And what do you guys just go get your own life? Like, just go, like, do your own thing. You don't like the street epistemology stuff? Great. No problem. Do your own street epistemology. Like, what is your obsession? I mean, these people are creepy, dude.
I'll tell you, I can help you with this, Peter. This is what happened to me the other day. Was I tried to get on a show called Capturing Christianity, which is a Christian show. And they had a guest who I have talked to in the past, and we had a very good conversation. I think he likes me. I like him. But the host of the show, named Cameron Bertuzzi, did not allow me on because he doesn't like me, and because I have mocked him in the past. I admit it, I've mocked him in the past, and I had fun doing it. I wouldn't say
I can see that he wouldn't let you on. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say I harassed him. But I think if he would have let me on, everything would have been fine. I would have had a good conversation with the guest, and I would have no questions for Cameron. And I think you could be a little more dead inside, Peter, on this issue. You could, like, just ignore any animosity against you. And if someone came on and said, "Hey, I just want to ask Doug something,"
no,
like,
no, I'm not done. I'm 57. I'm done. I've got, these people are parasites. They are parasites, and they just have so much time on their hands, and they're obsessed.
I agree.
And they're super creepy. They follow me around. They go to my events when they're been not invited. They're told not to go. That these people are creepers. Like, could you imagine that? What would it take you? You've not invited to an event. You've been actually told not to come as a participant. Your ticket is revoked. You fly out and go anyway. That's creepy. That's like harassing and stalking and creepy. So no, I'm not dealing with any of these people. But if they want to do their own thing, I mean, I don't know what their obsession with me is. I'm just a dude. Like, go, but be obsessed with, like, someone who's like a movie star or something. I don't know, or a dog. Get a cat. I don't know. All right, let's go down and do these. Let's do these super chats. Transparency and merit for $5. Boycotts done strategically in litigation is the best way to deal with the woke left. Well, they do understand lawfare very well. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you're going to start to see a lot more litigation. It's already happening in the UK, right? Of
detransitioners. Yeah, detransitioners. That's the way to go. And our brains are wired for testimony, so those testimonies are going to be incredibly powerful. And especially Andrew Doyle has done some great stuff on the Tavistock Clinic, and now Schellenberger's done some great stuff on WPATH, and then the Cass report came out, and I think that the scales, well, they're certainly tipping in Europe and in London, but I think that the tide is changing slowly to change in the, thanks for becoming a YouTube member. We appreciate that, transparency and merit. I think that the tide is changing here in the US slowly but surely. That's my feeling. I could be wrong.
I agree with that.
Sir Thomas Drake, 499. Hey, thanks for supporting the channel. I've never seen the machine elves, but I have seen triangle land while on mushrooms, basically a cascade of geometry and color while tripping. Yeah, that's pretty common. Alex Berenger, I think that's his name. I had him on the show. I'm gonna have him on again. Talks about a waiting room for DMT, especially when you do the extended DMO. The extended DMT. So there are kind of commonalities. Machine elves only occur, from what I'm told, on the DMT. On DMT. But yeah, cascade of geometry and color while tripping. You also have again, listening to these reports is pretty extraordinary, the kinds of experiences that people self-report. And I'd like an evolutionary biologist. I asked Christina about this, Buttons, my co-host. She said she could explain some of it. I'm sure people who are steeped in this.
Peter, just to let you know the type of guy I am, back in high school, I went to a private Christian school, and a close friend of mine, we went to his house, nobody was home, and he did some drug. He had a little wire and he put some stuff in it and then he smoked it. Do you have any idea what that would be?
Was it a white drug, crack, meth? I don't know.
I don't know what it was either.
I'm not a drug guy. That's just not really my thing. I don't really do drugs. I mean, I do prescription drugs that my doctor gives me, but I don't do illegal.
It would have been funny if you said, "Oh, that was such and such." But anyhow, and so he started talking to me about what he was seeing. Like he said that when I stared at him, he saw red lasers coming at him in like little dots, and anyhow, so he was doing this right in front of me, and I had zero desire to participate. So I've always been this way.
Well, then don't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I have zero desire to do a lot of things. Reed and I went to a trampoline thing where we were with a very good friend of mine. We're jumping off these trampolines. I did it once for an experiment, but I got this thing and problem with my left ear that made that very, very difficult. But like if someone has zero desire to do it, okay. Sir Thomas Drake, 199. Have non-woke AI conduct peer review. Here, some problems with that. There is no non-woke AI.
Yeah.
Elon wants to make non-woke AI truth-based. That's what non-woke is, just based upon truth. The problem is that you're going to increasingly see papers done by AI submitted to AI, and the whole thing is bogus. The whole thing is coming apart. And by the way, Doug, nobody gives a shit, right? Nobody can, there's no talk about meaningful reform. There's no talk about, and there's actually somebody sent this to me. One of the donors to the foundation sent this to me. There's an AI that makes AI papers so that they're undetectable by AI. So basically you're just going to have academicians.
It's like a true Turing test.
You're just going to have them submit papers that they themselves don't write, that they can come up with it in a very short period of time, maybe 20 minutes, submit them, and maybe submit them to AI or what have you. But at the moment, if they submitted them to AI, they'd have to be even more morally fashionable.
We got 2 callers waiting.
Okay. Hey, Daniel, how's it going, man?
Hey, Peter. So I have a kind of a 2-part question.
Okay.
And one's going to deal with kind of like the mediocre intellects of today, and the mediocre leaders, and then the other one's going to kind of deal with radical individualism and self-love.
Okay.
But my first question is, so right now I'm writing a book. I'm working on it, and it's titled "Many Are Called, Few Are Chosen," and it's basically going to explore how society is settled for mediocre leaders and mediocre moral people, mediocre intellects and mediocre moral people to lead society. And I'm curious, how do you think we get past that? I think a lot of this has come from kind of like the downgrade within the educational institutions, but also kind of what we accept by possibly through propaganda and other things through legacy media. So I'm curious what you two are very smart people. So I'm curious.
He's talking about you, Doug.
Yeah.
Because everybody tells me I'm a moron constantly.
No, you're both intellects for sure. And I'm curious, both of your thoughts on how we kind of get past this mediocreness that we've kind of see within the intellectual field and within our leaders now, and go back to these exemplified leaders of people with morals and intelligence of before, really hitting back on what Teddy Roosevelt used to talk about back in the early 1900s.
All right. You want to take that, Doug? Or you want me?
Well, a society gets what they vote for, right? So, and you alluded to that mediocre people vote for mediocre leaders. But I'm not so sure, like even Biden and Trump, I wouldn't call them mediocre. They have skills, right? They have skills in resonating with people, their base. Both Biden and Trump are very good at that. They can resonate. I would say that if you can lower the amount of need in a human being, they then start acting and voting more responsibly. So if you're desperate for help, you're going to vote for whoever you think is going to give you the help, regardless if they're immoral and just a horrible person. And so if you can actually build this is the conservative in me coming out. If you can build more conservative leaning type families where the kids are not, they have a safety net already, namely a loving mom and dad who have made correct financial decisions, so that if the kid doesn't have to go on food stamps, they can mom and dad will feed them. And I'm a big proponent that as a father, my responsibility is to take care of my kids until they die. But I'm probably going to die before them. Hopefully, yeah.
Right.
And so it's very dangerous that when you start to vote based on desperation and severe need.
Yeah, so I think that leads perfectly into my second question, because I think these two things kind of combine a little bit. And I'm kind of writing a second book too, and it's about radical individualism and the rise of self-love cults, basically societal destroying ideologies. And in it, I'm kind of examining how social media has led to even more amplified versions of this, and specifically how it's led to the destruction of relationships, families, and very selfish, self-centered voting patterns and so forth. And I'm kind of curious, both of if you guys, I assume both of you are very aware of radical individualism and kind of the self-love in extreme ways. But I'm curious what you both might define that as.
Well, I think self-interest, there's a fine line between self-interest and self-love. And I have no problem with self-interest. I think that when I'm even selfishly looking at what's best for my family, I think it ends up doing what's best for society as well.
Yeah. I actually, I kind of outlined the difference within it, like trying to talk about how certain things have been perverted, right? So like, for instance, like even on the ideas of authenticity, I kind of talk about, like from Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud's kind of like thinking patterns. It's more far psychoanalysis, trying to understand the deeper understanding and meaning of the individual, trying to create a psychological wholeness, right? And authenticity, it involves being true to oneself by understanding and integrating all parts of the self, including those that are difficult and unpleasant, right? But then the way radical individualism and radical self-love, at least that is spreading within Generation Z and the millennial generation due to the amplification of social media, seems to be that there's a distorted version of it, where in culture today, the concept is often reduced to a slogan, right? Like it's encouraging people to live their truth, right? Their truth in a way that sometimes justifies selfishness or harmful behavior that hurts families, that hurts children, that hurts society as a whole. And I guess the main question I guess I really have beyond all of this is how do we get back to a healthier society, restore kind of the familial unit? I mean, we're living in a generation now where there's more single people than ever, and people are refusing to even date or have relationships.
And they have people having less sex too, which is
less
amazing
kids,
to me.
less sex. And we're seeing,
but not Doug.
We're seeing radical hyperpolarization.
And not Reed, not Doug, and not Reed. Those two are like cougars, wild men.
And we're kind of seeing this radical hyperpolarization between even the genders. For instance, like in places like South Korea, I think it's something like 72% of young men in their 20s voted for the conservative candidate, and 68% of young women in their 20s voted for the liberal candidate. And like, so there's a lot of stuff like, like huge differences, or even simple things like young men in Germany. I think it's roughly about 1 in 3 young men in Germany are okay with a monarchy versus much of their older generations. And then it's like 1 in 10 young women are okay with it. So like, there's kind of this, even among Gen Z, even in America, we kind of see the identification difference on how they identify. And I guess that brings up into the main thing is how, if radical individualism and radical self-love does become a greater problem, and I think it has become that, specifically for Gen Z and millennials, it's destroying families. It's destroying the idea of society and culture as a whole, of putting your nation, putting other things first to make sure that we can live in a society and not destroy it, right? How do we combat it, I guess? Like, what is the solution?
Education. Like I literally teach my son how to pick up women.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I agree.
I've done
with
it on
that.
several occasions. I said, this is how you do it. And so for the young people listening, if you're a young man listening, this is how you pick up women. You go up to a woman, you say, I find you very, very attractive. You could, hi, my name is so-and-so. Hi, my name. I find you very attractive. And then you walk away.
Yeah.
That's
mean,
strategy
I agree with
1.
I agree with that.
What's strategy 2? I've never had to have that conversation.
Strategy 2 is you need, for young people who are not even interested in dating or anything like that, the older generation needs to tell them it's fun. I mean, just last night, I really encouraged my son, hey, ask this girl out to go see a show with you. I mean, you'd have a great time.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the dating part of it all. I guess, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that have changed nowadays. I mean, I have kids and stuff. I don't have that problem.
Excuse me, Daniel. Doug, I've never had that conversation with my son.
How old's your son, Peter?
20. Well, I can't say online because I don't want anybody to target him.
Okay,
but he's older.
But is he? Does he have a wife, a girlfriend?
He's gay. And Doug.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't have a problem then.
No, there's no scarcity in the gay community. And I've never had that conversation with my daughter either. You know why?
Don't say she's lesbian.
She's lesbian.
Oh, God.
What were you eating when you procreated?
She's adopted from China, but I'm 2 for 2.
Are you a beekeeper?
I don't know how it just it's kind of funny. It's actually super funny.
That's a little bit of a coincidence.
Well, all right. Well, Daniel, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man. Good luck with your book. Just keep writing every day. That's the key.
Yep.
Okay, Reed, we have a couple of super chats. Let's do these. Doug, people are super chatting you. They love you, bro. They love you, man.
What's not to love?
Bass Studios, CA. I don't know. What is CA? What is CA?
Canada.
Is it Canada? I'm north of the border, Canada. Peter, would you consider facilitating an impossible conversation debate between Chris Martenson and Shermer vaccines skepticism? Sure. I know Shermer's one of my best friends, and I know Chris very, very well. We're extremely friendly. I've known Chris for years. I like both of them. I'd be more than happy to. I don't know if Shermer would be the right person. I would think that somebody who's a hyper specialist in that would be, maybe he is the right person. I really don't know, but I would assume that you'd need an MD with domain specific expertise. That's what I don't know. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah, sure. That's a very controversial topic because of COVID, and there's many different types of vaccines, but it seems like that conversation is kind of taboo, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shermer has tons of debates. I think he'll basically talk. He's kind of like me, basically talk to and debate anybody more or less, as long as they haven't harassed you. So I mean, I don't think that'd be fine. Reed, do we have another super chat there? So yeah, I'm totally open to it. Oh, by the way, someone wrote in the chat, I think that marijuana is a terrible drug. I think it's terrible. then I've smoked marijuana before. I think it's just a truly terrible drug. Actually, I think there's an even worse drug than that. And that's, I speak about this all the time. People probably be sick of hearing me talk about it, but sugar. I think sugar is absolutely the worst drug that one could take, like barring fentanyl or heroin or something like that. It's
when we were cavemen, we didn't have sugar, right? Like it was very, very rare. We had fructose, I guess, berries.
Fructose. It's doing a number on our, excuse me, it's doing a number on our society. And we mentioned before this Ozempic thing for Johan Hari's book and fat studies people are they're saying that Ozempic is instead of a trans genocide, it's like a genocide on fat people, on fat bodies, the Ozempic. It's really quite an astonishing way to look at it. But obesity.
Do you take any sugar?
Let me try to think. Certainly not added, but I mean, I'll eat bacon, eggs, and I get like the happy pigs, roam around, and then I'll always have a piece of fruit in the morning. Usually a banana. I like bananas. Reed likes bananas too, and then berries.
Bananas are terrible.
I love bananas. They're high sugar though. The guys who do but there's no added sugar. And like once in a great while, if I go someplace and the cocktail has sugar in it, like it's not enough too sweet, but I drink Chianti all the time. I'm trying to cut back on my alcohol. I usually have like a glass or two I never have more than 3 anymore. A glass or 2, maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 glasses. Like the other night I had 3 glasses of Chianti, but drier the better.
Have you ever tried Lizzo?
Lizzo,
the singer?
That's what I was thinking of, Lizzo.
Have I ever tried
no, I'll pass on that one. That's another thing of like with your idea, like what Socrates' famous quote, a man doesn't think what he doesn't think that he lacks. I don't think I lack Lizzo. I don't want to try. You don't think you lack wanting to try DMT or the DMT experience, so you don't want it. Someone watched the new South Park special. Yeah. I saw that. I didn't really pay too much attention to that. Oh, by the way, I want to give a shout out to 2 shows that I've seen recently that I've been like, holy shit, those are really good. One show is Dark Matter. I can't stress enough how much I like that show. I love Parallel Worlds. That's like my favorite. I think probably is my favorite. I'm a science fiction fanatic, and that's my favorite subgenre of science fiction, Parallel Worlds. And then I just watched the so the other thing is I work so much I can only watch these things in like little periods, and then even then I'm answering my email. But I managed to finally get through the Dune. It took me a long time to do it, but I finally got through Dune Part 2. Wow, that was phenomenal! Like that, talk about world creating and world building, just excellent. Highest recommendation.
Can I watch that with my evangelical born again Christian wife, or will she not like it?
I don't see why not. There's no.
I've heard some rumors that it's really like thumbs down on Christianity or in some way. No?
They don't mention Christianity or even allude to it. I can't. Well, there is talk about, without giving it away, there is talk about a Messiah.
So it's basically
not Jesus.
Is Dune basically a knockoff of Star Wars then?
Oh my God, dude, that's the most offensive. You've actually managed to offend me. I'm now deeply offended. No, how could you even say such
or the
thing?
Matrix? What's with all these knockoffs? Come on, make some original content, people.
If people really want to get me going, they intentionally confuse, the conflate or mix up Star Wars and Star Trek. That is like truly painful to me. But talking to my buddy Ben Browder from I don't know if you know who he is. He was in Farscape and Stargate, and I was talking to him about that. And we have pretty much the same shows and same taste in science fiction. But he really likes that too. I think he would have been a great protagonist for that. Okay, cool. So Reed, did we have any other?
We got 3 waiting.
Oh, okay. Abraham Hooker. Oh, hey man, how's it going? Good to see you again. Abraham, can you hear me?
Isn't Abraham Hooker Rachel in the Old Testament? No, never mind.
Hey,
yes,
Abraham,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good to see you again. Yeah, how you doing, man? How are you?
Are you?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I'm doing good. I have quite a bit of a lag. I'm
Okay,
doing
cool.
good.
Then just throw out your question and then we'll get to it.
Yeah, throw out your question, then leave.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Okay. Sure. I just wanted to first off apologize for the last time I spoke to you. I had assumed ahead of time that I already kind of knew everything involved in my argument, and something you said made me realize that that was not the case, that I was missing a piece of the argument. So it was unfair to assume that you were going to have to pretend not to really understand part of the argument to hold a different position than I did. So since I was wrong there, I just wanted to make sure I did apologize publicly for that.
Oh, thanks. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but that's cool. I appreciate that.
And sorry, I have such a lag. I can't really hear your response. So I just wanted to briefly throw out a comment about the whole why people believe things, some things, and why they don't fall for it in other cases. I think it may be related to intuition and its relationship to expertise. I've been reading up on intuition, and a lot of the studies on intuition are how it is related to entrepreneurship and expertise in that way. So my thoughts on what type of biases prevent us from hearing the other person in our conversation with them is we can build up kind of like what happened in our conversation, where I had built up a false expertise in my perspective, where I thought I had heard most of the opposing arguments. And this false expertise would cause me to recognize an argument, or think that I was recognizing an argument before it was fully presented. And so it made it a lot harder for me to recognize arguments that were presented after that point where I thought I had recognized the argument. So I'm still thinking about, expertise and biases along that line, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there so other people could think about that as well. Thanks a lot for the time, Peter and Doug. Have a great rest of the day.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Abraham. Thanks. Yeah. Do you have any comments on that?
I'm starting to dislike the word expertise.
Talk to me.
It's becoming a synonym for infallible, in my view. It's when you work with professionals in any field, yeah, they have more experience, but I just get this impression that, well, if you're not an expert, or if you are an expert, that means that you're infallible, that you can't be wrong. No, experts are wrong all the freaking time. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I agree. I think that the general distrust in expertise overall. I just wrote a chapter for Krause's new book on this. I can tell you the title. I forget the title, but I think it's one of those things that's pretty easy to solve. No one wants to solve it. It's just, that's the other thing that's just so frustrating about this whole thing. It's all so simple to solve at a rudimentary level. The higher echelons of the problem are more difficult. But that's the other thing that I find so exasperating about our current cultural situation. Well, thanks. I appreciate you apologizing. I don't really remember what he was apologizing for. I think part of it is like, I don't really take arguments personally. Like if someone gives me an argument or presents a case, or I think it's like Plato's Gorgias, I think it's a good thing to change your mind about things and revise your beliefs. I actually genuinely believe that. That's not verbal behavior. I actually genuinely believe that. And so,
but yeah, it's always good to hear someone say they were wrong about something.
Yeah, my guess is that he wasn't an identitarian. So every time I hear someone, I never hear identitarians apologize for anything. All right, let's do another call. Hey, Janet, how are you doing today?
Hello.
We can't see you.
Partly invisible.
We don't see Janet. Janet went
Reed has
away.
made a executive decision that it might have been a bad caller, but maybe not. No,
Patrick. Hey, Patrick, how's it going, man?
Hey. So my question was basically about because you did the grievance study, the grievance study hoax, and I read the book. I'm not sure if you know about it. It's called Philosophy, Bullshit, and Peer Review by Neil Levy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because he mentioned your whole thing again, and it's also about like to have intellectual charity and basically how much trust should we give in peer review and how much trust should we give the journals. So my question would be basically, how would you see, like, how would the future look for like journals and the peer review process to know how should I say this?
you can speak in
Sorry.
High German if you want.
Do you speak
No, it's
German,
okay.
Doug?
No, klein bit. No, it probably wouldn't help.
Well, let me see if I'll finish the question. I don't know, obviously, what the future of artificial intelligence will be. And when I say future, I don't mean 50 or 100 years. I mean the next 2 to 3 years. But if things continue to advance, and if Bostrom and others are correct about this, we're going to see a very radical, very, very, very radical transformation occurring within the publishing industry, within the peer review process. Unfortunately, nobody is really having an honest conversation about this. We can't even have an honest conversation about whether or not we should accept articles published in predatory journals as part of the promotion and tenure basket. I mean, we can't even have a conversation about that. I think part of that is because many people have published themselves in these journals, and so they don't want to. It's kind of their vested interests. But I don't know that the landscape, the road ahead is almost impossible to know, because I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows. We can only make guesses about where artificial intelligence is going to lead us. But if even the most conservative estimates are correct, and again, they might not be, maybe even more conservative than that, I think that you're going to see AIs writing papers. I mean, you already see that now. You're going to see non-detectable AI. You may even see, you're going to see, if you don't see a transformation in the peer review process, that's because the process in the system is so corrupt and it's so broken that that it's utterly irredeemable. I actually think it's utterly irredeemable at this point, but that will truly be the evidence that it's utterly irredeemable. By the way, and you've seen, I'm sure you know, I've spoken about before, the replication crisis in psychology, but the same replication crisis is in economics now. 50% of the papers can't be peer reviewed, et cetera. So it's a shit show.
Yeah, I talked to some professors about the issue, and they also received a lot of papers where they spotted that it was basically written by AI, which is a huge problem for them. But the good thing is they're normally spotting them. But
but that's, again, you're going to have, and then I can send you the link, or I'll try to find the link, because I just read this a little while ago. If you Google it, like AI creating papers that cannot be spotted by AI, that would probably be nobody lies to Google, Doug. They tell you text exactly what they want. I use Brave search engine or DuckDuckGo or what have you, but there are AIs that are getting around that now. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for calling in, Patrick. Thanks a lot, man.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Yep. System's broken, Doug. No one wants to fix it. Nobody wants to talk about how to fix it, and anybody who attempts to fix it is suddenly a bad guy. All right, Reed, who's our next caller? Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
I think what you did and what some people are doing today is the best way to keep the peer review system on point is to put in fake papers once in a while and see if they catch it.
It's broken. Can't be fixed. That's my opinion. I think we need to start new journals. Peter Singer from Australia, the famous ethicist, has started the Journal of Controversial Ideas. Other people are trying to I just went to a conference where I gave a talk, and other people are trying to start new journals. Maybe University of Austin, maybe Ralston will start a new journal. But again, if you have very sophisticated AIs, I don't know
Yeah.
what you're going to do. I mean, and then people are using that to leverage their
Like
own
I think the
careers.
peer review process still works and is very good for the hard sciences. Like you and I could take any paper, and if the method section of the paper is
That's not
clear,
true anymore. No, there are citation cartels, like in mathematics. There are citation. Look up Google citation cartels.
No, I know, but I'm saying the citations don't matter. So in other words, forget about any opinions they give, any citations that they give. Just ignore it and just go to the method section and reproduce it.
I'm so happy you said that. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's just so important to talk about. So that's the first thing I do when I look at a paper. The first thing I do is I read the abstract, and then I immediately go to the methods. Like, there's no point in reading anything. You have to figure out the way, was it a sufficient N, number of subjects? Was it like, if you don't read the method section, you don't even put the conclusion in your head until you've read the method section.
Yeah. And then what you could do is have independent companies. And in fact, this is maybe a good idea. Find someone who hates right-wingers, finds a right-winger who hates woke leftists, and then start a business together where all they do is reproduce the method sections of these papers and see if they can reproduce it.
Yeah. So that's would have to be. And I'm always fascinated by the concept of someone would say to me, well, I'm a conservative Christian or what have you, and why should I believe any of the data about that warming is anthropogenic, given that 99% of faculty are all left leaning? And my response is, you're absolutely right. That's why we need ideological diversity. It's like when a Supreme Court is, when they said that somebody, the wrote I think it was Larry Flint put I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong, but Larry Flint put a picture of Jerry, who's that religious dude? I can't remember his name. Jerry Falwell having sex with his mother in an outhouse, and the Supreme Court decision was 9-0. And that was when the Supreme Court was more ideologically homogeneous, not when it wasn't homogenous, or heterogeneous, and different people had different views. And so when that's the case, and it's 9-0, and people disagree with each other about other things significantly, substantively, and enduringly, so shall we say, people have more confidence in those decisions. All right, here's Thomas. Hey, man, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Thomas.
Hey, man.
Enjoy all your stuff. I have a question about the universities. I came late. I was at work, but I was wondering, should universities be separated more from STEM and other subjects? Because it seems to me that X studies and some other degrees are relatively worthless and almost akin to pseudoscience, like the X studies and some of the arts. And that's could be why some of the universities cost so much, besides the overabundance of administration.
You want to take that, Doug? You want me to take that?
Well, it would resolve itself if every student going in and choosing a major knows, like, hard data that X% basically could not get a job for years afterwards and never did get a job, or if they did get a job, this is their salaries. And I think some universities publish this information. Basically let the students know, if you choose to go into a soft science, that it's probably going to be worthless, or at least you're going to get a negative return on investment. And if they still want to do it, then do it. But don't ask the U.S. taxpayer to pay your bill.
I agree with that. I was in grad school, and it did seem that you get in there and it's homogenous in their view, but even in STEM fields, they just assume you're going to be a professor. Maybe I just went to a shitty school, but they really don't give you any options. They just assume you're going to be a professor, and your life's work is going to be into the university system. And a lot, at least in biology, I don't know about other STEM fields like engineering and math.
Yeah, I got a master's in analytical chemistry, and then I just looked around at my fellow students there, and I said to myself, "I'm not like you guys." Like,
What was your degree in? What did you chemistry?
I have a master's in analytical
microbiologist.
chemistry.
Oh, sorry. Yours.
Analytical. What is analytical chemistry? What is?
It's
what
basically
is
finding out how much stuff is in other stuff.
Quality control, kind of, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like toxicologists tend to be analytical chemists. It's
analytical chemistry. Wow, that's pretty
it's-
esoteric. Analytical chemistry.
but then I looked around and said, I'm more of a practical guy. So then I got an MBA in finance, and and I was much happier. But yeah, I think it's very important to let students know just how useless.
You were much happier not doing analytical chemistry.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a bar.
People person, you know me, Peter.
That's quite a bar, man. Wow.
Do you think it's fair to call some of these studies and degrees pseudoscience, or is that too hard?
Oh, of course it's pseudoscience. It's that's probably one of the most charitable things you could say about it. Is
Because you're still adding the word science to it.
Yeah.
So
because they're just they're forwarding narratives that are they're not even pseudo. They're just narratives. I mean, they're really forwarding certain conclusions at the expense of all else.
Like my son is trying to get into universities right now, or actually there's only one he wants to get into. And I told him, I'm not paying. You got to pay. You either got to get merit scholarships or you got to pay yourself. I said, I will pay for your food that you would have, because he eats a lot. So if he's gone, I save that amount of food, and I will pay that. The university gave him like a little over half merit scholarship to pay his tuition. And I said, oh, sorry, you're short. Like, I think parents need to put their foot down and stop paying for their kids' education. That's part of the reason why university costs are so high, is because people are paying it. Stop paying it.
I agree.
And he wants to go into musical theater, and he's a very good thespian.
Musical theater. Wow, that's really something specific.
He's one of the few straight guys in musical theater. And
well, good for him. He's probably cleaning up.
And but I,
look, Thomas is doing DMT there. He's smoking away. That's why the screen is about to go black.
But if you look at the
very quiet soon.
If you look at the return on investment on that type of degree, it's very low. Like, it's either huge or very, very small. And so I told him that. I said, in my opinion, you shouldn't get that degree unless it's completely free and someone else is paying for it. And
what is he going to do with that degree? What do you do with him?
He wants to go on Broadway. But that's like a kid going into university football and then wanting to go into the NFL, right?
I was just thinking that. Yeah,
it's such a low.
That's the exact analogy I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also his dream too, and you don't want to.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
but sometimes as a father, you got to squash dreams of your children.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I remember talking to people who their kids were into computers when no one knew what computers were, and then they nurtured that. I don't know. I think that there is something about nurturing somebody's dream, and then
but there's many ways to do it. And what I just said was a little bit facetious, but I advised him to do musical theater here in Tucson, Arizona, and there's like many opportunities because it's like an old.
It's
an old West town. Like, there's old Tucson studios.
You said where you live, so you don't have people out to get you. That's super interesting to me. You just wait.
Oh, I live in a gated community with a guard dog. So
Can you take the difference?
And then once I buy my Glock, I'll leave the door open.
You don't have a Glock? You don't have a gun?
Not yet.
Oh, I sleep with a gun by my bed. I can't believe you don't have a gun. Why don't you have a gun?
Laziness, I guess.
Oh, dude, I had a whole interview that the end.
You want to come to Tucson and help me gun shop?
No, I'm not a good gun guy. The interview ended with this woman saying, who thinks that the threat of society is. I actually really liked her, but on a 9 on a 1 to 10, and she was just lazy. But yeah, I mean, you should totally have a gun by your bed. Someone comes in and they don't have a gun, but you have to train with it too. You know who's awesome at training? I went when I was in Florida. I did the tactical training with Luke Radowski. Holy shit, that was amazing. That was an amazing experience. Like, you're running around this house and these guys are shooting, like, these BB guns hurt. They like really hurt, even though you're all geared up. Anyway, that's
yeah.
a conversation for another day. All right. Anyway, Thomas, thanks for calling in, man. We appreciate it. And
Peace out, guys.
Enjoy your comments. Right on, man.
Take it easy.
Yeah, the simple answer is don't encourage your kids to get a soft science or psychology degree or gender studies degree. Don't pay for your kids.
Yeah, it's sad. I guess also almost every institution is ideologically corrupt right now. So there are a few holdouts and a few new universities and a few new universities coming online. People email me and want to contact me about them. I'm too busy to help, but it's really, I'm too busy talking to you, Doug.
You know, what's a good test?
What's that?
So let's say you're a young person who wants to go to university or graduate school or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost X dollars and you don't get any merit scholarships. Go to a bank and say, it's going to cost $50,000 to get this degree. Can you lend me the money? If a private bank says no, don't get that degree. If a private bank says yes, get the degree.
Yeah, but they could also be short-sighted too for that, right?
Well, but banks are mainly interested in return on their investment, whether they're
So let me repaid. Let me throw some out. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. James Lindsay and I have had an amazingly productive writing partnership. However, there was one piece that we did not get published, and that was when we advocated for vocational education. I'm a huge fan of vocational education.
Trade schools.
Massive fan of vocational education. Yep. But we have demeaned that sufficiently, and now there's a shortage. They're making really good money. Electricians, carpenters.
What do you think about this, Peter?
Plumbers.
That let's say in middle school, junior high school, and high school, you IQ test, and you literally put people on boxes and say, these are the careers, the trade schools.
I'm against it. That's
against that.
Yeah, that's what the Gaokao does. They try to do that with the Gaokao in China. No, I'm against that. I think people should.
But you save so much mental anguish in young people. Like,
I don't know if that's true. I mean, that is what you're. Are you making?
I'm not saying you force them. I'm not saying you force them, but you basically say
no. You got to be an electrician, for example. You need a lot of brains. Were you saying that lower IQ people go into the vocations?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying based on your abilities and your intellect, these are the trade schools for you or university for you.
I don't know. I don't think that intellect works that way. It just allows for the possibility of different things. I don't think it shows proclivities.
Like people who can close their eyes and see things that are not there, like theoretical physicists. I mean, I do think that there is a match of IQ to vocation.
Yeah, I know there is. My mentor told me about that with accountants. I think he told me having the highest, and I had forgotten this when I spoke to Lee from.
Like, do you think you'd be a good teller at Safeway? I mean, do you think you'd be happy?
No, but someone gave me advice years ago that I'm bummed I didn't take. I think I would have really liked to have been an assistant manager at a Walgreens. I think that would I really think that would have been good for me. I really think that would have been great. It would have taught me people management skills. I think it's really been a good thing, And the older I get, the more I realize that it's in. We often, when we're young, we have these kind of conceptualizations of, oh, this is what I should be doing, this is what I ought to be doing, as opposed to acquiring skill sets. No, I think, and I'd love to be writing in my other life. I'd love to be writing science fiction scripts. I wrote a couple of scripts. The guy who co-founded The Onion, Chris Johnson, and I wrote a science fiction script and get picked up. And if I didn't do that, I'd like to write restaurant reviews. I love eating out at restaurants. I think I'd be good, but
you don't eat sugar. You're not going to review their desserts.
No, that's true. I just would have Reed would. Well, actually, no, he'd be a truly terrible person. But I could have.
You need a fat person in the live stream chat to join you with that. And
you'd have to be fat. I know someone who's super thin who loves desserts.
Hey, when it comes to food, you ask fat people, and they know.
I don't know if that's true. It kind of reminds me of the people. Well, I don't know. Okay, well, let's get to the caller. Dumb Bible Podcast. Hello, Davey Hell. How are you?
What's up? Hey,
you got the words mixed up. It's Bible Dumb Podcast.
Bible Dumb. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was calling because you mentioned Happy Pigs and Peter Singer in the same breath. So
Oh
I
yeah.
was going to call and be the obligatory vegan and ask if
okay.
have you seen all of the street epistemology, Socratic method type street activism going on in the animal rights movement?
No, I have not. Maybe Reed is more
There's
familiar with that. I have not seen it.
yeah, there's a large community that is doing street epistemology out there with a specific goal in mind, that being, like animal liberation and
Well,
spreading
then
the
it doesn't
message of
work, right?
veganism. Well,
Then
that's
that
what I was
won't
going to
work.
ask you. If you have a specific goal in mind, you think it becomes less effective?
Good question.
So if you're out there
I
doing
do.
street epistemology to say dissuade people from
Yes and no. Yes and no. Well, Doug, do you want to take that? You take that.
I'd say no. I say that street epistemology can still work even if you have a goal in mind, but it makes it harder. And so
I would agree.
Yeah. So I think, like in my show, it used to be mostly religious, now it's mostly political, but a Christian will call in and I say, I'm an atheist, I'm a naturalist, may I cause doubt in your belief in Jesus? And if they give me permission, then I'll use
Or may I
SE type
attempt
questions.
to? May I attempt to?
Yeah, may I attempt to? And they'll say something like, well, you can attempt to, but it's not going to work. But in a way, it's like when you lay all your cards on the table, tell them where you're coming from, it kind of alleviates that problem.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. And at a certain point, you just can't hide what you believe anyway. And so a quick Google search would reveal that. Yeah.
I've even gone away with telling people, like, to think that Jesus rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, I think is like borderline delusional. And yet you can still have a good conversation after that if you've built rapport and say, hey, well, at least I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, there seems to be such a scale between, say, like put Anthony Magnabosco on one side, where I would call that extremely soft, where he prefers them to know nothing about why he's there, what his opinions are. And then the other side, I think you start getting into Peter, and then you, Doug, who does a little bit more debates. And then you get like Aaron Ra, who does like very kind of confrontational debates, and then all the way up to like the Satanic Temple, which is out doing what I would consider more flamboyant, just in your face, shock value activism in order to create awareness or to straight up, fight against some laws. And it's really interesting to think about, is one more effective than the other, or are they all needed in order to create a cultural change?
Yeah, let me just say that someone wrote in the comments here, asking an SE question and Doug answers, what the fuck? What the hell? I mean, sometimes, so relief belief. So sometimes, when someone calls in and you have a co-host, it's not only a polite thing to do, but you want to get their opinion about what they think. And so that's why we do stuff like that, right? So sometimes, oh, well, what do you think about that, Doug? Or, oh, well, what do you think about that? What's your opinion on that? And so sometimes the deferral of the self-aggrandizing expertise is a good thing to do.
Peter was being a good host.
One would think, but you know what? I've realized there's literally nothing one can do at any level, even being polite, that is not the subject of some kind of, whatever. That's fine too.
Well, Peter wrote the book, but I know more about it. So there you go.
Well, I let these things slide. Doesn't make a difference. But yeah, no, I think that I have not seen those videos, but maybe Reed could show them to me, because I would like to watch a few of those. And again, I let the communities, self-govern more or less. We've seen what's happened as a consequence. But
I'd say the biggest name is Joey Carbstrong, so that's a pretty easy one to remember. Him and Earthling Ed. Yeah.
Like I've been kind of SE'd on the vegan issue, but it usually ends up just being what you value and what you don't value. And so, and I think these types of SE questions come to a point, like if you're SEing someone about Christianity and Peter was to ask, well, does it matter if it's true or not? And they say, no, it brings me comfort. Where do you go from there? I mean, you're done. Like if your goal is to get to whether it's true this man was God incarnate and rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, and they say, I don't even care if it's true or not. Very few Christians actually say that, by the way. But if one were to say that, like, and I think something similar happens with veganism. Like if I say, no, I really don't care if cows die. I prefer they don't not tortured before, but no, I don't think they have a right to life. I think rights are made for humans, came from humans. So if a turkey, a pig, a cow dies, so what?
And if you have an insouciant attitude, that is certainly.
And if you even admit you're speciesist, and you have a proclivity to your own species, just say it. And I think vegans don't know what to do with that. All they can do is like, but would you treat your own child this way? No, because they're Homo sapien. A pig is.
Well, they run down the name the trait argument, where you would say, well, what is the morally significant? Well, I mean, that's exactly
I wouldn't do that.
We would ask. That's exactly what we would ask. What is the morally relevant difference between that animal, say your beloved dog, or even in the case of the happy pig, which would it be morally preferable to kill a happy animal that's living its best life, that's enjoying its existence, or the one that's being tortured in a factory farm that's close to death and hating every moment of its existence?
Yeah, I think those are great questions. By the way, Davey, I just as an aside, I showed a video. I had to stop showing this video. I was teaching a class, an ethics class, and I can't remember, this is so long ago, but I showed a factory farming video, and this video, holy shit, this video was ghastly.
Was it Dominion?
I don't remember the name of it.
WatchDominion.org.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. It was and I told people before the video, it's like, look, I don't care what your choices you make. You have to be responsible for your own choices, but you have to realize that this is what's happening. Like, you should at least know what's happening. But what's interesting, I got so many complaints about that video, but here's the interesting thing why I'm telling you the story. Half the people walked out of the room in the class. The people who complained to the higher ups at the university about me, those people were all meat eaters. And the people who came up to me at the end and said, oh my God, thank you. Like, I can't thank you enough for sure. Those people were not meat eaters. And I just thought that was really interesting. I just thought that was, I thought there was a there. All right. I can't keep this on. I got to end in a couple of minutes. So thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are vegans against cow abortion? Do
cows get abortions?
No, let's say I was a vet and I wanted to abort a cow fetus.
Like, what would the reason that you'd want to abort a cow fetus?
Forget about the reason, but let's just say that happened, because I would think most vegans are pro women's choice to abort. Probably. I'm curious if they'd be consistent with animal abortion. Or is there moral outrage?
Yeah, no. Your point is well taken. I just keep trying to fabricate examples or reasons in my head why an animal will have an abortion. But okay,
life of the
reasonable thing. Well, Doug, thanks everybody, and everybody. Let's say thank you to Reed, and again, Johan Hari was not here today, so Christina Buttons. Doug graciously agreed to fill in, but Christina and I are going to do Johan, and we're going to do a bunch of other books. We have a lot of things.
That's it? We're done?
What? Did you want to go more? Did you want to go more? I haven't even eaten yet.
Yeah, but you don't need to eat. You ate yesterday.
Well, if you had returned my call, we could have talked about before how long we would be on for. That's why, you need to or my text. And
was there anybody waiting?
I have. It's 2:44. I haven't eaten yet, and I have a 3:00 call that I have to make that I've been putting off.
Because I'm having too much fun to end it.
That's good. It's fun.
But all good things have to end sometime, I guess.
I love that line. All that shines turns to rust. All that stands in time turns to dust.
Do we have time for one more quick call? Like 5 minutes?
Yeah, I got to let my dog out. Hold on. Let me let my dog out and we'll take another call. Hold on.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
Read.
Let's go.
5 minutes. See, I bargained with Peter. Emerald, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Sorry,
There you go.
I'm here. I have to agree with you guys about psychology. I know I'm cycling it back, but as a psychology dropout, I can say that it's definitely not something they should be offering as a bachelor. It's just not.
So you would, if you could run the universities in the United States, you would actually say no more psychology.
If I could run the
departments?
universities in the West, I would not offer psychology as a bachelor at all. It would be masters or above. You would not be able to do a psychology.
I see what you're saying.
Bachelor's. Because
so we have a
different system in Australia. Freud. Yeah, I live in Australia. We have a different system than the US.
Hey there, Emerald. How's it going?
Hello.
How is it different in Australia?
So you just do standard degrees, like you are in a degree program, and then that program is essentially scheduled for you. You don't really have kind of like the a la carte kind of university system that the US seems to have, where you can kind of pick and post hoc justify what your degree was about.
Are you from Ireland who lives in Australia?
I am. But you just missed before what I said is that I agree. Island. I did a much bigger one. But I won't keep you too long because I know you're waiting for dinner and calls. What I said to Doug just before was that I agree with you guys that psychology is essentially a bunk degree and they should never offer it in undergrad.
Or they should from day one tell people immediately about the replication crisis and everything they're teaching is as good as a coin flip.
I think more that like it's like I think of it like law. Like you can't necessarily do a bachelor of law. It's a postgraduate degree.
But if you get rid of if you get rid of psychology as a degree, what are people to do if they suck at math?
What do you mean?
Well, I imagine that there's a okay. You're joking. Sorry. Clearly, I'm on the spectrum. What was I going to say? Well, actually, my actual question was, speaking of universities, is that here in Australia, we do have a bit of an issue with essentially the universities being foreign student farms. And I wanted to know, are foreign students much of an issue in the US? Because I don't really know all that much about.
Yeah. When Reed and I were in Australia, we learned about that when I was lucky enough to have a visiting professorship, which was a really interesting experience in Sydney. And we learned about that. We learned what those quote unquote farms look like and what their ambitions are. Yeah, it's a problem. It depends what you mean by a problem. In Australia, to my understanding, a lot of the universities are held hostage to foreign tuitions. So it's a big problem. From my understanding, it's a big problem in Australia, but it's less so in the US and fewer people. We still need those because native enrollments are decreasing. And one of the things the Biden administration wants to do is debt forgiveness, which I think is truly one of the worst ideas ever, but not for the reasons people would think it is. So yeah, I do think it's a problem. I don't know. I can't give you data or statistics, but from my understanding, it strikes me as a problem because it means that I remember once I'm not going to name the university where I taught. I had a bunch of students from Vietnam come to my class, and I'm sure I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm actually saying this, I'm being very sincere. I'm sure they were very smart, but they spoke almost no English. And I mean, I don't even know how to say a single word in Vietnamese. Yep. Maybe one that I won't say on air. But and so I failed these kids, and then I got a call from I'm not going to name the name of the place. So I got a call like, why did you fail these kids? And I said, well, they don't speak English because part of the exams were they had to answer essay questions on the exam. And so then they said they wanted me to give them special tutoring. And I said, I'm happy to give them special tutoring. They come to my office hours, but if you don't speak English, I'm not sure what good that's going to do. And I went to my office and there's this massive line. I started, I'm like, what are all these people doing here? And they're like, oh, they're all waiting for me. They're all Vietnamese.
Is it at the undergraduate level or graduate level?
Undergraduate. Yeah, undergraduate.
Don't they have to take some type of English proficiency test?
Well, that's the problem is if there's financial and the university isn't doing well financially or they need money, they can quote unquote overlook those or waive those, WAIVE, or they can, so I mean, you have the additional problem. And again, that's no dump on the students. And I mean that with total sincerity.
But if you fail them, then they have to take the course again and the university gets more money. So wouldn't there be an incentive to fail?
No, there's the incentive to get them through the program, to get them through to have a degree.
Yeah. See, this is one of the problems with the US. It's like too much feel sorry for them. We need to fail more people and let them know you're not good at this.
Well, that's interesting because in a university where I taught, like if you look at the average grade distributions, so there's grade variance and grade distributions. Grade variance is like how many A's, B's, C's, and such you get. And then there's, what mean grade you give. My mean grade was a B, I believe. And the department average, if memory serves me correctly, was a B. So my grade average was in alignment with the department average. And I believe that was lower than the college average and much lower than the university average. Now, there are certain subjects that, like gender studies or mostly the soft sciences in which those means are higher and the variance is lower, and other things like in engineering, the hard sciences. So, you also have to think about what grades are giving people, and what is the grades that people get in order for the class to count as credit. So I don't know what to do about the, then we haven't also, it's bundled with the questions, not directly what you're asking, but there's also the Confucius Institutes. Those are a massive problems. Those are basically arms of the CCP. I don't know if that answers your question or not. I have a heart out.
I think it definitely illuminates it, and your experience with the room full of essentially non-English speakers is definitely mirrored my experience with having to work with international students in my courses. Is that essentially it's a death to your group project?
It's
difficult. Can imagine.
Yeah, it's particularly difficult, and it really made me feel bad because I gave some students in my class, if memory serves me correctly, extra credit to help these people out, and they really came to my office hours every week, and they wanted to, but they don't speak English. I would say something, somebody would translate, and it was just, that just seems to do a disservice to the students. So yeah. I don't know. But I think that there are such vested financial interests. So where in Australia are you living?
Adelaide. I've actually called him before, and you made a big point of it being Adelaide.
Oh yeah, I loved Adelaide. I had a great time there. I had a fantastic time. There's a great wineries. Reed and I are going to go back to Australia.
You'll have to come to Adelaide. If you're in Rundle Mall doing your epistemology, I'll come see you.
Good. And
I can come if Reed pays for me.
I was going to say, if Reed pays, Doug will go. And you can meet Reed. You can have dinner with Reed.
Oh, well, I've had dinner with Reed before, but
no, I'm not talking about you, Doug. I'm talking about Emerald.
You can
have dinner with Reed.
Thank you.
Are you saying
actually before? Huh?
Nothing.
Before I run, I wanted to say about DMT. No, I'm very much spoken for.
Oh, that's true. Reed's going to be heartbroken now. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
But the last thing I said was that it is connected to DMT, and it is a massive circle back. But you were talking about its effects on people who identified as transgender. And an interesting anecdote is that the conservative influencer Blair White has spoken a lot about their experiences doing DMT, and it has definitely seemed to change their perspective on their own identity.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can there are podcasts. If you go to Apple Podcasts and you put in DMT space, it just listens, and a lot of those people just give their experience. All right, Emerald, thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you. You have dinner.
That's very, very kind. Yes, I'm breaking my intermittent fast. People are upset actually that you and me by extension tried to set Reed up with Emerald.
Why?
I don't know. That's weird. That's weird. I don't know why. Why would that be?
We're doing our part to raise the reproductive rate, although she's in a different country. But.
Yeah, but that's okay. Well, Reed's going to visit her.
Did she say she was married?
Oh yeah, she's taken, so Reed won't visit her, but Reed's still going to visit. Reed's going to
unless they're both okay with that.
We got invited to New Zealand, so we're going to go to New Zealand and for a free speech thing, and then we're going to go back to Australia. All right, I literally haven't eaten, and I've got a 3:00 appointment, so I have 5 minutes to shove something in my mouth. You got a lot of comments here. A lot of people are upset with you about something here. What are they upset with you about?
I welcome the upsetness.
I
don't know.
Cuck. Oh, that's really nice. Right? Some people have way too much time on their hands. Like Apostle Paul, #1 fan. That's good. I mean, dude, I don't know. Like you really need to get out more, breathe, something.
It doesn't bother me.
No, it shouldn't bother you. Why should I? Remember, only criticize. The best criticisms are the criticisms that one should take seriously are criticisms that are given by an equal. And the other way to think about it is if someone doesn't know how to fly a plane, why would you take their criticisms of you trying to fly a plane?
My dad just commented. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. What did
your
dad say?
Yeah.
Is that your dad, Wade Tischhammer?
It's an old picture from like 40 years ago.
Oh, wow. Wow. How old are you, Doug?
I'm 53.
Oh, you're a child.
You got a few years on me, right?
I do. I'm 57. You're a child.
Yeah. Yeah, you're my elder. I have to submit to you.
Well,
I hope I did.
That's such.
Not in that way.
I gotta get that image out of my head. Oh God, please no. Please, can we undo that?
I'm gonna sleep with Reed when we travel, and not you.
I
Okay?
don't give a shit what you do with Reed. Just don't kill him.
Oh, that even sounds bad. Okay, thanks for having me on.
Reed's a consenting adult. He can do whatever he wants. All right, cool. Well, thanks, Doug. We appreciate it.
Fun.
And thanks a lot. We'll have you on again, and we'll take some more calls. Thanks a lot, man.
See ya.
Oh, and keep your thing open. Keep your thing open.
Don't leave.
All right, Reed.
Okay.
Let's end it, Reed. And thanks everybody for coming in and talking. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Everything we do is under the umbrella of the National Progress Alliance, nationalprogressalliance.org. It's a nonprofit, independent 501c3. Your generous donations keep us going and keep fueling content like this. So please help us out. Make a donation. We very much appreciate it. Thank you.